has become the driving force behind our economies. These new technologies, as well as access to these technologies, has influenced our world system order. With these constant innovations, competition of the global market is at odds with market regulations of accessibility. But how do we regulate the distribution of media ownership? And how do we fairly distribute the output of this information? Good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in to KXB3 News. I'm Cameron King.
And I'm Andrew Rodriguez. And today's segment is centered on the struggle to maintain diversity and a balance of power in the media's ownership and governance of the internet on a global scale. Among the core nations, the three largest global media empires are all American. This results in Western customs, ideologies, and beliefs becoming the majority of what is put out by the media companies. This influence in the market leaves the less powerful peripheral nations at a standstill.
Today, we will get an inside look on two countries on two opposite sides of the global media outlet continuum.
First, we'll have a look at the stance of the United States on this issue, their media coverage of choice, and lastly, how they plan to resolve the issue. Jackie has the inside scoop.
Thanks, Cameron and Andrew. I'm Jackie Cryan reporting live from the ICANN headquarters, and I'm going to talk to you today a little bit more about what's going on with ICANN. The U.S. government announced its intention on March 14th to relinquish its oversight of the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, better known as ICANN. But a deadline for implementing the decision has not yet been determined. A new concern presents itself now. How will American interests be addressed? An internationally focused ICANN might perhaps have different priorities and more countries' interests will be covered. As a result, American interests may no longer find themselves always at the top of the agenda. As the oversight involves regulatory and other issues, U.S. internet governance may not be effective in other countries. ICANN should be insulated from political pressure from the UN and authoritarian governments, but should also be accountable to individuals and businesses that rely on its actions. Congress should mandate a set of guidelines for international oversight of ICANN. ICANN's new oversight system is not based on intergovernmental or UN control of ICANN. ICANN developed a multi-stakeholder oversight system incorporating large, medium, and small businesses and industry groups with the authority to veto ICANN decisions that threaten the openness or viability of the internet. ICANN submit to an independent auditing body comprised of government, business, and NGO representatives to monitor its finance and activities, and ICANN demonstrate to the U.S.'s satisfaction its technical capability to manage the root zone and shield it from malicious interference.
So based on Jackie's findings, the U.S. is relinquishing its control over ICANN. How can this loss of authority be detrimental to the world system order?
Well, I think with the ICANN being more internationally focused and centered, the U.S. might not have top priorities when it comes to the governance of their internet.
Mm-hmm. Well, to better explore this idea, let's look at it from the standpoint of a peripheral nation. We'll hand it over to Coleman. He has the inside scoop in Brazil.
Thank you, Cameron. My name is Coleman Manning, and I'm reporting here from our studios in Brazil. And I would just want to add that the government has announced plans for national information infrastructure, and the developed nations have already launched plans for the political situation and freedom of press in the foreign country. Brazil has a high rate of poverty level as well as extreme richness. By this, I mean that there is a high technology and poverty of importance and characteristics of development within the country of Brazil. Most Brazilians who can read or speak foreign language learned it in private schools instead of public schools like in the United States. The Brazilian economy can be labeled as wild capitalism. It's either completely free or it's highly dominated by the oil and electric energy. The new federal government, inaugurated in 1995 and established to invest in the funds of the state to make it in the sector, forced the opening of telecommunications in the country. Finally, the computer sharply mirrored by the income distributed among high and upper middle class families in the country itself. Many computers are at home, but as well as due to the high levels of poverty, many families do not have access to computers. There is a reason to believe that Brazil is the first world to likely use the internet in some ways that the United States has not. Some limitations may be expected due to the conditions of the telecommunication infrastructure in the country. Stages towards the left of the application spectrum centered around written language. Mapping uses of the internet in Brazil's third world country can task because of the impacts of poor infrastructure and illiteracy rates. The internet has been based on reality of the developing country. There are thoughts of two important issues. The first is governments in developing countries should invest in networking research industries. The main reason behind this is because it's a cheaper way to increase quality of academic research in Brazil. The other problem is that the government in developing countries should deceive mechanisms to promote access to the internet NGOs, grassroots movement, and public basic schools. Instead of subsidizing universal access at the personal level as it is necessary in telephony, it seems to be more productive to connect to the internet organization. Just as an example, we provide the registered organization laptop computer and modern internet account. Brazil, as opposed to the United States, is connected to themes that range from the academic journals to the country of where it has its major concern, which is in AIDS. This has been a problem because Brazil's third world reality, we can expect few influences from this development nation in the center of its fully connected to the internet. So in conclusion, Brazil is connected in the first world themes because international academic journals are centered around the development of the country's issues. Influences in the economic development of the nation even if research centers were fully connected to the internet. Therefore, since most of the research is not directed from the United States. Taking it back to you, Cameron and Andrew.
Coleman mentioned this idea of the informational superhighway from the perspective of a country struggling to evolve economically. Being an American citizen, we have accessibility to information as well as the internet as a commodity, but unlike Brazil, where they only have private schools who have access to internet and computers, computers are actually decimated based on an income distribution.
There's definitely a digital divide between the rich and the poor in Brazil. We thought in America it was pretty bad. Over there, it's up 2 more notches.
We've also found that the new federal government's inauguration in 1995, the improvement of telecommunications has been moved to a priority, so that's been pushed to the forefront of Brazil's agenda. So here you can see the shift in power from the core nations to the peripheral nations. But here we again address the topic or the issue, how do we fairly distribute media ownership, and how do we, if so, distribute that media ownership, maintain and ensure that the regulations of accessibility will also be fairly distributed.
I'd like to say thank you to Jackie and Coleman for giving us the inside scoop on the issue of media regulation and accessibility of information in the U.S. and in Brazil.
Thank you so much for tuning in to KXB3 News. I'm Cameron King.
I am Andrew Rodriguez.
And we're signing off.
Tune in for the Tonight Show with Jay Leno.